on, everybody? Got to get that lighting in here, man. You know what I'm saying. Are we stagnating? I watched a really good interview with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was a co-founder in PayPal. He started a couple other companies. One was called Palantir. I think they're a big data company. He has also invested. He's on the board of Facebook, or was on the board of Facebook. He has invested in some very successful companies. And he was talking on the Hoover Institution about stagnation. So him and a guy named Eric Weinstein, and he is a mathematician who works for Thiel in one of Thiel's I don't know what he does actually, but he works for Thiel. Now, here's what's interesting about the situation is they both believe that in the West as a whole, we haven't seen a lot of innovation. It's interesting. Basically, he thinks in the last 50 years, we have not seen a lot of technological innovation in the physical world. So he mentions that the digital world, he calls it, I think, the world of bits, has gotten much more advanced. Like with the internet, computers, things of that nature, like have gotten really advanced fast. Like communication technology, all of that has really gone a long way. But in terms of our physical world, our physical infrastructure hasn't changed much in the last 50 years. Whereas, say, going from the 50 years prior to that, you would see huge changes because 50 years ago was what, 1960s, 70s? But then you go from the 70s back down to the 20s, and that's a different world, so a whole different world. Whereas maybe from the 70s to now is the biggest difference. Like we see improvements in cars, but we're still driving, our cars are everywhere. Cities have obviously shit's changed, but it's Thiel and some other people note that our outside world is still very similar to the way it was 50 years ago, but we saw rapid progress 50 years before that. And then if we even go back earlier, think about living from the 1800s and then experiencing the 1950s. Like that would be a whole world of difference, in terms of there were no cars. There's just like everything different. Whereas now it's like TVs have gotten nicer, phones have gotten better, communications technology, digital world is awesome. Anyway, so why does he think this is happening? It was an interesting conversation. So I think in some part, I'm not 100% sure. It was kind of, I think he's not the easiest guy to understand. Maybe I'm just an idiot. But what it seemed to me was that he blames some of this, or he put some of this at the foot of the Enlightenment. Basically, I don't know exactly the reasoning here, but he seemed to say, let me check my notes. I did take some notes. Oh, shit. He believed the Enlightenment. So I guess he blames the Enlightenment to a degree for moving us out of certain traditions. Maybe not certain traditions is the right word, but what he does talk about is how we don't trust ourselves to think anymore. He lays that at the feet of the Enlightenment. But one of the themes that he talks heavily about is that we don't trust our own intellect. And he was basically saying that we don't trust ourselves to think rationally, to make the right decisions. And he was saying that he thinks that is also one reason why we're so obsessed with AI, technologies because we're looking for something to think for us. And I think that was interesting. I actually made some parallels to that and um, my own my own life experience, but also our history. Our history in the last 100 years with socialism, communism, or just dictatorships in general, where there seems to be in the ideological pushes behind the communist, at least there's an idea of like, hey, I know how to run this country better than anyone else. So we're going to do what I say, right? Or like the fact that one guy thinks he can just rule everybody, uh, or maybe a group of bureaucrats rule everybody at that level that they do under like the socialist and the communist regimes, where they direct all economic activity. There's a hubris there that is really strange, but it seems to be a hubris that is some people have it, but it's then directed onto the population at large. And he also had talked. Teal basically says that because of the Enlightenment, we don't trust our rational faculties as much, but that's like all we believe in, which is interesting. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm still trying to figure out exactly. I agree with like that's our current state of things, which is we don't seem to trust our ability to think, and also uh, it seems as though with things like college and some of our institutions, I feel as though that's kind of what we're running into now is a crisis of thinking where Teal and other people have talked previously about how in society, we talk about how millennials, they're job hopping more, we're doing different things. It doesn't look like financially it's uncertain about how if we'll be better off than our parents, things like that. And the times have changed, and I forgot where I was going with this train of thought, but it was good. It was good. Um, so, and I wish, if Nick was in here, he would tell me where I'm at here. But anyway, it was an interesting conversation, and forgot where I was going with that, but that was a good one. Anyway, yes, I was talking about how people. Yes, okay. So what I was getting at was in the past, how the last century or so, or less than that, college didn't become a thing till like the 50s, right? 50s, 60s. So once college became a thing, people just kind of were brainwashed into these tracks of like, oh, if you follow these steps, you will make it in society. And there was just this kind of, in my opinion, there was just this big push of like, this is what you do, this is what you do, and then you work for a company, right? And it seems as though that the institutions we've set up for that, like the way that school pushes you through, the way that college is worked out, the way that we push people into corporations, it's like the whole system is set up in a way so that you don't actually think. And I don't mean this in I mean, I guess it could be conspiracy stuff, but I'm not saying that this is even as like a way to, I don't know, maybe it's a way to pacify the population, but it's also a way of kind of saying like, look, we know what's best, this is what's best for everybody, right? It's for, and I don't necessarily think this happened, but the institutions, for some reason our society, just we develop these institutions where through school and through life you are not figuring stuff out. You can follow a path or you very much just go on autopilot. Like I said, with high school, with college, and with jobs, like how people are looking for a path, that's what people want. They want, okay, so if I just do these sets of things, then everything works out, right? And everyone else is like, yeah, I guess so. So that's how it seems like what I think Thiel was addressing as well in his interview was that type of thinking, how our institutions are kind of set up like that. They're set up to just get us along a track, and it basically outsources your thinking to what all of society is doing. You don't have to think and figure out how to learn new skills or how to do anything necessarily creative. You don't have to use that mind of your brain if you don't that part of your brain if you don't want to. You can go into, like I said, autopilot mode and outsource your thinking to the machine, to the society as a whole. What are the rules? What do the rules say you can do? And a lot of times those rules will get you into some satisfactory position. And satisfactory, like as in you'll have enough to eat, that kind of shit. Have a roof over your head. Of course, it doesn't work out for everybody, but so it seems like one of the big challenges of today is about how those institutions have been breaking down. And it's good for a society. I heard somewhere that it's good for society to a degree to have these things. There needs to be a path forward. I think that might have been Jordan Peterson, that it's good for a society needs to have a way for people to integrate and succeed. um, and clearly we have these institutions, but they're not working, it seems like they used to. So um, or they are working how they're just working how they can work as they're set up currently. Like there's not any other way. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got for today. And if you guys want to check out that interview, it's on YouTube. Peter Thiel, Theil, Peter Theil, and it is on the Hoover Institution. You'll find it. It's good.